By the end of this video, you will be able to explain Bootstrap, download Bootstrap library. Hi, welcome to the next module. Until now, we have learned two web technologies, that is HTML and CSS, that are used to design a beautiful looking web page. In the previous module, you saw that to style a web page, you have to write its corresponding CSS code. Writing CSS takes a significant amount of effort and time. So, to minimize the effort, we have Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a CSS library. This means it is basically a CSS file which has some pre-written CSS code into it. Since CSS is already written, we have to write minimal CSS of our own. Now, we just need to focus on writing proper HTML so that we can make use of the Bootstrap CSS. Bootstrap makes designing a web page really simple. It contains many design components that can be directly used into web pages. So, where can we find this Bootstrap CSS library? We can download Bootstrap from the official website using this link. You can find the link below the video, which you can copy and paste in the address bar of your browser to download the Bootstrap. Once you open this link, you will see this page. You will see a heading, compiled CSS and JS. Scroll a bit. You can see a download button. Click on this button to download the file. This will download a zip file. Open the zip file and there you can see two folders, CSS and JS. We are right now concerned only with CSS folder, so we will open it. As I said earlier, Bootstrap is a CSS library, so once you open this folder, you will see a lot of CSS files. We are concerned only with the bootstraps.css file or the bootstrap.min.css file. Bootstrap.min.css file is basically a minified version of bootstrap.css that takes less space when compared to bootstrap.css. So, if you open this file, you can see that everything is tightly written without any space. Well, this is what we mean by the minified version. So, we will copy this file and paste it inside the project folder, just like any other CSS file like this. Now the most important thing, we need to link this file into our HTML, and for that, we will enter this code snippet. With this, you are all set up to use Bootstrap. We will continue to explore more about Bootstrap in the next topic. See you soon. Hi, welcome back. So far, we have seen how to code HTML and CSS on mobile using this editor. Now it is time to use Bootstrap on mobile using the SPCK editor. Say, we have this HTML code in which we have used some Bootstrap functions which are present in the Bootstrap library. Along with this, we have the corresponding CSS code to style the HTML page. Please don't worry about the explanation of the code. You will understand it shortly in the next topic. Also, you can find the HTML and the CSS code in the exercise element of the second topic of this module. Just like HTML and CSS, executing an HTML code with some Bootstrap function is quite simple and interesting. But the most important thing before you run the code is to add the Bootstrap library to the HTML file. In the previous video of this topic, we have already seen how to link the Bootstrap library to the HTML file if you are using a computer or a laptop. But here, things are a bit different. Here, we don't need to explicitly download and copy paste the bootstrap.min.css file. This is because, if you remember, inside the rest folder, we already have a bootstrap.min.css file. So, we just need to copy the name of the file and link the Bootstrap file to the HTML file. But make sure to paste the name of the file exactly as copied. Now, if we run the code, you can see that the code is running properly. With this, you're all set to execute Bootstrap codes using this editor. Bye-bye. By the end of this video, you will be able to use some of the classes present in the Bootstrap and use them to create different page layouts. Hi, welcome back. I hope you have completed the exercise given in this topic. And if you have not, I would advise you to pause the video here and first complete the exercise. So, this is how our bootstrap_example folder looks like. It has 4 files, bootstrap.css, bootstrap.min.css. Both are basically the same files, The difference between them is that the minified file does not contain spaces and is near to impossible to comprehend. We will get into the details of these files later in this video. Next, we have index.html and style.css files, which we will also understand shortly. In the index.html file, notice carefully that we have linked the bootstrap.min.css file and the style.css file in the head tag of the HTML file. Bootstrap CSS file, or in our case bootstrap.min.css file, will always go up first in the HTML file. And then we add our custom CSS file. This is done because in case we want to override some style properties. And then we have added one line at the top, which we have discussed in the topic media queries. This is added so as to make the web page device friendly. Then in the body tag, we have a division container inside which we have rows and columns. Don't worry about the terms container, row and col. We will understand them shortly in this video. So what does this code do? It creates a container in which we have two rows present, and inside these rows, we have 3 and 2 columns respectively as defined in our HTML code. We have color coded the rows and columns as defined in the style.css for better understanding. As mentioned in the previous topic, Bootstrap is a CSS library or a CSS file that contains some pre-written CSS code. So, in bootstrap.css, you can see it comes with a plot of predefined CSS. You can see that there are more than 10,000 lines of CSS already present in this file. So, it becomes important to understand this file in order to use Bootstrap and to use it in our HTML. As most of the CSS is already written, we will try to use it more in our code so as to write minimal CSS of our own. In short, we can say that learning Bootstrap is learning bootstrap.css because this is what we are going to use in our HTML. Coming back to our HTML file, we have used a class container. A container represents an entire block, generally used for a page or for sections of a page. Remember that whenever we want to create a layout of a web page, we start with the div element first. And if we see the bootstrap.css file, we can see the class container that has some properties in it. This means these properties will be applicable to this division. Next, we have class row in our HTML, and if we see it in the Bootstrap, you can see that there are some properties that are automatically applied to this class row. The row creates a flex box and itself becomes a flex container, and all the calls directly inside the rows become flex items. Let us understand using the inspect element. We will right click on the first column inside the first row and will select the inspect element. This opens the inspect element. Now you can see the styles associated with this row. We have not written these styles anywhere in our CSS file except the border color for rows and columns. All these styles are loaded from the bootstrap.css file. For the class row, you can see that it is display flex, which makes this row a flex container, and the immediate divs inside the flex container as flex items. Now if we click on col4, it has its own properties. You can explore these properties on your own while doing the inspect element. If you notice, there is a number associated with col like 4 and 6 in our case. These numbers have a special meaning that tells how much width that column will take in a row. So 4 means that the column will take a width of 33.33%. And 6 means that the width of the column will be 50%, which you can see in the Bootstrap file. But let me help you understand it in a different way. Bootstrap has a 12 grid structure. This means each row is divided into 12 sections and each col or column can take n by 12 of the space, where n is any value from 1 to 12. If you see in the Bootstrap file, for every value of col there is a predefined width. Based on the value which we give to the cols, the col divs will take up n portions of the 12 sections of the total available width, that is, width of the parent row element. Now coming back to our HTML code, for the first class column we have defined the col value as 4. This means this column will take a width of 4 by 12 into 100, that is 33% of the parent element width. Similarly, the width of the second and third class rows will be 33.33% as the col value is 4. Also, notice that here we have 3 columns and each column is assigned a value 4. This makes the total value as 12, which means that all these columns will take the entire width of the parent element. Now what if I change the value of the second and third class coal values as 6 and 2 respectively? Again, the total sum is 12, which means that the columns will take the entire width of the parent element. Pause the video for a moment and calculate the percentage width taken by each column. So for the first column, the width will be 4 by 12 into 100, that is equal to 33.33%. For the second column, the width will be 6 by 12 into 100, that is equal to 50%. And for the third column, the width will be 2 by 12 into 100, that is equal to 16.666%. Now this was the case when the sum of all values was 12. But there can be some cases where the sum of all the values can be greater or less than 12. So what will be the layout in such cases? Let's find out. Let me change the values first so that the sum is greater than 12. Here, the total number is greater than 12, that is 14, and you can see that the third coal has shifted to the next line. And let me change the numbers again. Okay, let me change it to 4, 3 and 3. Here the sum is less than 12 and you can see that we have some space available on the right side. Now, instead of numbers, we can assign auto as the value to the coal. Let me assign this value for the second coal. This allows the column to take only that much space that is required for the content, which you can see in the output. We can in fact not assign any value to the column. This means it will take any remaining extra space. So you can see the first column is taking 33.33% of the space. The second column is taking that much space to fit in the content. And the third column is taking the entire space available. Now what if for two columns we have defined the value as coal? What will be the width of the column in this case? This is something I will leave to you to find out. To summarize, to create a layout we start with a div element container. And then inside this div element, we can create rows and columns as per the layout we want to create for a web page. In our case, we have created 2 rows and inside those rows, we have 3 and 2 columns respectively. In the next video, we will continue to explore more Bootstrap properties for creating a layout. By the end of this video, you will be able to apply breakpoints to create a layout. In the previous video, we saw how we can create a layout using class container, row and column. Then we discussed a few values of class coal where n can be any number between 1 and 12 and coal auto and coal values. In this video, we will see how we can customize layout for devices having different logical resolutions, and for that, we need to understand the concept of breakpoints first. Here, we have a table in which we have 3 columns: range, symbol and breakpoint. Bootstrap has defined 6 breakpoints based on the logical resolution of various devices. It believes that there are 6 ranges of devices, having the following width of ranges in pixel. Only for easy understanding, let us add one more column device against each breakpoint. So, it says for mobile devices, we have a range from 0 to 575 pixels. Similarly, for mobile landscape, it has defined a range from 576 to 767 pixels, and so on for various devices. Next, we have a symbol column. Each device or range has a symbol associated with it. For mobile devices, there is no symbol assigned by Bootstrap, but we have symbols for the rest of the devices. These symbols are important to learn because these are the ones we will be using shortly in our code. We will come to the breakpoint column later, so please wait for some time. A few moments back, I told you that we will be using these symbols in our code. So let me show you an example of how they are used. Say we have a value of a class as coal MD5. First, the symbols are always used in between coal and value of n. Like here, we have MD in between coal and 5. This is a rule that you need to remember. Secondly, they are used to specify after which point the column will be sized accordingly. So, coal MD5 means for screens or viewports greater than or equal to 768 pixels, the size of the columns will be 5 by 12. Why 5 by 12? This is because in Bootstrap, a single row consists of 12 equal sections and 5 is the value of coal which we have defined. This is something we have already discussed in detail in the previous video. So this greater than equal to 768 viewport is a breakpoint above which the size of the column will be 5 by 12. Similarly, for all the devices, we have their corresponding breakpoints. Let us take another example as coal 3. Notice that we have not used any symbol here. It means the width of the column will be 3 by 12 for all the devices with viewport greater than equal to 0 pixel. Let us understand the concept of breakpoints practically. Here we have a class row in which we have 3 classes for col having the same value as col MD4. This means that the column will take 4 by 12 into 100, that is 33.33% of the space for the viewport greater than equal to 768 pixels. Now this is for the screens where the viewport is greater than equal to 768 pixels. What about the screens whose viewport is less than 768 pixels? Let me show you this first. You can see as we go below viewport 768 pixels, the columns are not taking 4 by 12, that is 33.33% of the space. Rather, they are taking a complete row. So, for cases where we do not specify for lesser viewports, Bootstrap sets it for us. It allocates the entire row width to each column. Now, let us take another example. Here, we have the breakpoint of the first column as col 6. For the second column, we have col SM4. And for the third column, it is col MD2. Pause the video here and think what would be the size of the columns. The idea is to think from the viewport perspective rather than div perspective. We either start from the smallest or the largest one. Let us start from the smallest viewport. Here we have the smallest viewport. We have col 6, which means the column will take 6 by 12, that is half of the space until the viewport is 576 pixels. When we reach the viewport 576 pixels, we will reach SM. This means that the second column will now take 4 by 12 of the space, that is 33.33%. So what about the first column? Well, the first column will take half of the space because Bootstrap works with a bottoms up approach. Now if we reach MD, that is for viewport greater than 768 pixels, the column will take 2 by 12 of the space, that is 16.66%. And it will continue to happen for larger viewports. So I hope with this the concept of breakpoints is clear to you. Next we add multiple col classes to each child element. Like we have in this example, your task is to analyze the code and observe its output. Just remember, think from the viewport perspective rather than div perspective. You can download the code snippet from below the video. Lastly, in this video, we will discuss Bootstrap's mobile first approach. It means that we should ideally start designing our website on a mobile first and then slowly think about the larger devices and eventually add elements. Well, with this, we have come to the end of this video. In the next video, we will explore some predefined classes in Bootstrap. By the end of this video, you will be able to apply various Bootstrap classes to create a layout of a web page. Hi, welcome to another exciting video of this module. In this video, we will explore a few Bootstrap classes such as align items, align self, justify content, and offset. These classes have certain values associated with them using which we can position the columns inside a row. This is similar to flex properties, which you have already learned in the previous module. We will start with the align items. This class has 3 possible values: start, center, and end. And it defines the vertical alignment of the columns inside a row when there is an extra height. Let us understand with the help of this code. This is almost the same code which you have been working on in the previous video. Here we have one change, that is, for the class row we have added align items class with the value end. So this class can only be added to the flex container, that is for the class row. We cannot assign this class to the flex items. This is another important point which you should make a note of. Let us execute the code. So nothing happened. But why? If you remember, earlier we said that this works only when we have extra height. So in our CSS, let us add some extra height. Let's say 200 pixels to the class row. Let us force refresh the output. There you go. You can see that now the columns are starting from the end. Moving on, here is an exercise for you. Apply the remaining align items values, that is start and center, to the code given below the video and observe the output. Now let us move to the next class, align self. It takes 3 possible values: start, center, and end. It defines the vertical alignment of each column inside a row when there is an extra height. This means it is applicable only to the flex items and not to the flex container. Let us quickly see how the align self class works. This is our HTML code. Let me first remove the align items class from the row column and say for the second column we have align self center. We will keep the same CSS property without any change. Let us run this code. You can see that the second column is now placed at the center. Now, as an exercise, apply the remaining align self values, that is, start and end, to the code given below the video and observe the output. Next, we have the justify content class. This again takes three possible values: start, center, and end. It defines the horizontal alignment of the columns inside a row where there is an extra width. So, let us modify our code in such a way that we should have empty space in the columns. Here, I have assigned the col values as 4, 3, and 3 so that the sum of the values is less than 12. This means we have 2 units of space available in the column. Now let me assign this class and value as center. Let us run the code. You can see that we have equal space left of 1 unit each at the start and end of the column. Now we have 2 more values remaining for this class, that is start and end. Why don't you try these on your own? Also, observe the output when we have the class col value as col. Lastly, we will discuss offset. We will understand it with the help of this code example. So here, we have used an offset with a value 2 for the second class col. Let us execute the code. So what this offset 2 does? It leaves a gap of 2 units before column 2. So offset is used when we want to leave a gap of some units before a column. Let me update the value of offset as 8. Pause the video for a moment and guess the output. So column 2 has moved to the next line, leaving a gap of 8 units at the start. You can then see that column 2 is taking a space of 3 units which we have defined in our code, and a remaining space of 1 unit is left at the end. Based on offset, here is another exercise for you. What will be the maximum offset value for the second column if it is assigned a value of 3 units? Also, breakpoints can be used in offset, and why don't you give a try and observe the output on your own? Well, that's all in this video. Hope you had fun watching this video. Make sure you complete all the exercises given in the video. Up next is a quiz. All the best. Hope you had fun in completing the assignment. Even if you had been able to complete 1/4 of the assignment, it means you have done a great job. So in this video, I will walk you through the code solution. First, there are 4 HTML files: index.html, dashboard.html, property_detail.html, and property_list.html, out of which index.html and dashboard.html were given to you as part of your assignment. So let us start with index.html, which is the home page of this web application. We will walk through the code in segments because going line by line will take a lot of time. Now, there are 2 ways to view a code. One is through the code editor and one is through the inspect element. We should always try to use the inspect element to understand the code, as it gives us more flexibility to click on individual items and understand their corresponding code. For now, we will view the code in the code editor and later we will use inspect element. So the first line in the head tag is for media queries to make a responsive website. This is something we have discussed and you are already familiar with. Then we have the title of the web page. Then we have linked a few CSS files. The first one is the Bootstrap file. Then the next is Font Awesome CSS file. The file is used to create some icons. For example, in the sign up modal, we have these icons. If you open the property detail page, these stars are the icons which you can find and use using Font Awesome CSS file. Then we have added certain fonts from Google Fonts website. Here we have added open sans with different weights. All these 3 CSS files were provided to you in the problem statement. Then we have 2 custom CSS files, common.css and home.css. In the custom CSS file, we have added the style properties that are common for all the web pages. And the next CSS file, that is home.css, is specific to the web page. Now, This part of the code is responsible for the heading part. This is a sticky top heading, which we have already discussed. Here we have a navbar that contains the logo of the web application. Inside the navbar, we have an anchor tag which will take the user to the home page upon clicking the logo. Then this button is for the hamburger button, which comes after it reaches to the responsive part. Let me quickly show you in the browser. So this is called the hamburger, which was not there when we were viewing the website on a laptop or computer. It will appear only when we are viewing the web application in a mobile. Then we have a generic navbar which you can find in Bootstrap. This is for sign up and login modals. If you click on these icons, it will open respective modals. This is not needed right now, so you can ignore it as of now. Next, this part of the code is for the center part of the web application. Here, there is a heading and then there is a form which does not do anything for now. Now in the banner container, we have a background image which is fixed. We need to check this using inspect element. This is the reason if we scroll the web page, the image position does not change. If we remove this fixed property, you can see that the image also moves as we scroll the web page. Next, we have the page container section that contains the major cities heading and all the associated components. Then we have a division class row that contains these 4 columns, one for each city. Each of these cities has an anchor tag that will take the user to the property detail page for each city. Also, notice here we have used col.md, which means that below MD, each column will take a complete row. Let me show you by decreasing my screen size. We have done this because in mobile it will not be possible to accommodate all the 4 icons in a single row. Similarly, you can explore the corresponding CSS for this container. There is one property, border radius, which we have not discussed. This is a fairly simple property which you can find in the Bootstrap code. It is used to make rounded corners. Next, in our code comes the modal signup code. And right after this, we have the modal code for login. And lastly, we have the code for the footer. Well, that was all about the code for the home page, that is index.html. Next, we will discuss the dashboard.html page. Please note that the web pages, property list and property detail, we will discuss the codes of these pages in the 8th module of this training. Till then, you can review the code and understand the code using inspect element on your own. So let's continue with our next page. A user can view the dashboard once he is logged in. Since you have not studied PHP as of now, you can access this web page after coding it using http://127.0.0.1/pglive/dashboard.html. So please make a note of it. Again, if you look at the top, the first line in the head tag is for the media queries. Then we have the various CSS files. Here we have created dashboard.css for this page only. Next, we have the code for the header, which is a sticky type. That means that if we scroll the web page, the header will remain as such in its place. This is exactly the same code which we have discussed for the home page. Next, we have a breadcrumb. If you look at the top left corner of the web page, this is the breadcrumb. Let us have a look at its corresponding code. So this code is taken as such from the Bootstrap website and the names have been customized as per our requirement. You don't need to worry about all these complex codes. Almost all of the styling codes are taken as such from the Bootstrap website, which are then customized by the web developers. Now the next part contains 2 specific sections, my profile part and the interested properties section. Let us check the coding using inspect element. In my profile part, we have h1 tag for the heading, and then we have a row for the remaining content, which consists of 2 parts. One is the icon or image part, which is taking 3 unit space, and the other is this information part, which is taking 9 unit space. This icon we have used here is font awesome, and for this edit profile option, we have not added any functionality. This means if I click on this edit profile, nothing will happen. We have used MD here, means that below MD, these parts will take a complete row. Let me quickly show you how it will look below MD. For the right part, we have used justify content between property so as to place elements at each end. Now let us move to the interested properties section. It contains a page container so that we can add padding and all the property cards for interested properties. Again, the interested properties section contains two parts, left and right. The left part is for the image which is provided to you in the images folder, and the right part contains the details of the property. And then at the end, we have the footer code which is the same as we discussed in the index.html code. So before we end this video, make sure you go through the entire code using inspect element. Click on each property and see how it is being used. You will find similar things across all the pages. Up next is a module test. All the best.